Hello again, and welcome to Void Signal. I am your host, Brian Prime, and this episode is a chat with Erik and Christine of Dark Chisme. Dark Chisme is a Latin spice genre blending band that's part dark wave, maybe some post-punk or dark synth pop if you like. It's haunting and hypnotic and intimate. It's got an energy to it that we receive directly into our ear holes. It's drama and storytelling with a sexy beat. It's about identity and longing and being human. Pulsing synths, dance tempos, and rich vocals. It's a breath of fresh air. Check it out. Be captivated. You can catch Dark Chisme live at Glomefest this fall, which, speaking of Glomefest, this episode is sponsored by Glomefest. It's a traveling festival tour hitting the West Coast this fall with bands like The Royal Ritual, The Awakening, Aeon Sable, and Dark Chisme. You can visit glomfest.com to find more information and a date near you. That's Glom, Glom, fest.com. My thanks as always to David, Vara, and everyone at Glomfest. This episode is also made possible by listeners like you and Becky. My gratitude is always to the patrons who help make Void Signal possible. Visit voidsignal.net or patreon.com/voidsignal to help support the Void Signal project. Every little bit helps, and I'm appreciative. Thank you so much. I am truly appreciative. So thank you so much to Brandy and Quinn and Lucas and Tom and everyone who contributes to this humble little radio show I do. Real quick before I let you go, thanks for tolerating the background noise. There's construction things happening outside beyond my control. I don't know if the recording will pick it up or not. But if you hear it, sorry, I guess. I don't know. I'm a human that lives in a home and sound happens. Okay. Our time is at an end. Don't just be a spectator, and reach out to the people you care about and let them know that you care about them. It might be the thing that helps them hold on. Stay safe and stay loud. Until next time. Welcome to Void Signal. I am your host, Brian Prime. I am joined for this episode by Christine and Erik. Thank you both so much. You both perform and record together as Dark Chisme, and you're on the upcoming Glomfest. And I've been listening to your music in the run-up to the show, and I am quite enamored with what you're doing. I love the blending of styles and sort of reminds me at times of things like Priest or Ashbury Heights, but with like this great dark edge to it. And I love what you're both doing. And I'm really excited to see you guys live when the time comes. Anyway, how are you both doing?
I'm doing great. We're just kind of chilling, just kind of prepping for like our tour that's coming up. One's like a mini one, one's an East Coast tour with Glass Spells. And then of course, Glom and some other festivals are playing. So we're kind of, just trying to prep for that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Been doing some writing too. We just released a song, so that's been like occupying a lot of our time. So,
gotcha. Awesome. Well, I wanted to just kind of put the question to you both of what led you to this path and this. How did you wind up becoming this thing that you are making now?
Yeah, I think mostly like we've both been in bands before. I think just kind of like years before. I took kind of like a break from joining bands. So like I started like in a black metal band where I was playing drums, but then also doing like, metal vocals, like highs and lows, then went into like a synth pop band and always just kind of interested in just like different styles of music, but just mostly singing, drumming, things like that. And so I guess I picked up DJing in Chicago. And so it was a great way for me to be in multiple scenes because I was very like inspired by house music, Chicago house music specifically, and how to kind of blend dark wave and house music nights in the 80s in Chicago. So I was always like, I admired that. I picked up DJing and chatted with Erik after being involved in music, zines, and art in general. And it was like, I want to make music again. I don't know why, but I just feel like I want to get back into it. And I love dark wave. I love post-punk. I wanted an outlet, I guess. And so Erik was like, all right, let's do it. Let's make it happen. So we just, yeah.
And I kind of had always wanted an excuse to learn how to play synthesizers. I played bass for a long time, but hadn't made music in years and mostly had just been illustrating. And so when Christine came to me with this, it was kind of like yeah, that'd be cool. I've always kind of been interested in, wanting to learn how to play that. And so we started writing music, and yeah, I think we started with just like 2 songs and performed it at a DJ gig, and went from there. I got some good reviews from that show, and we just kept going.
And it does seem to, I like the blend that you have kind of going on with styles and genre, as well as sort of Latin influences. It gives it this dynamic that feels very layered and human. And that's the thing that sort of attracted me to what you both have ended up making together, is how very natural it feels and how it comes together. I was going to also ask, with that in mind, what do you see this turning into, or what would you like it to turn into? And what kind of themes are maybe inspiring the next stages of your evolution for this thing?
Yeah, I guess I'll want to continue kind of like the style route that we're trying to achieve. It's just, incorporating like my love for house, techno, dark wave, new wave. I do want us to get a bit more darker. And so we have some plans for that. Some tracks that are much softer, more maybe like in a post-punk realm, but just kind of really digging into some post-punk roots, but then also making sure that we keep high energy, because I honestly like performing high energy songs, and that might be because of the black metal background of just having energy and running around the stage and headbanging and things like that. So I gravitate towards like that kind of sound, but we definitely want to kind of have more darker beats. We've talked about like sampling from our record collection, a certain, beats or notes or remixes, things like that. So yeah, I guess I would say, to sum it all up, it's just like really cool sampling, trying to make our own kind of like noises, like that sound pretty organic that you wouldn't get from like a synth, and then just like darker notes.
Gotcha. And Erik, do you agree?
Yes, I mean, yeah, that's totally the direction that we want to go. Yeah, it's more instruments too. I think a lot of the first album was written with a mix of analog and digital instruments, and I think we found that we really enjoyed the sounds and how natural it sounded to add more analog instruments. And so we're looking at things like guitar and percussion and things like that.
I'm so excited to see you guys at Gloamfest. I was hoping to catch DJing at Mechanismus when I was there in Seattle this past month, but didn't work out. But really excited to catch you performing live in LA and in San Francisco. So you kind of mentioned that a little bit near the beginning of getting ready for that and preparing for it. Can you tell me a little bit just about getting involved in Gloamfest and how it ended up working out?
So when we did Terminus last year, there was an after party, and I think I just ended up talking to some folks that are involved with the fest kind of unknowingly. And we just had a great conversation. It was really like awesome to meet them and just chat with them. And they had caught our set, I think, earlier that day or the day before. And so then, yeah, it was kind of one of those things, just connected at a festival, and they reached out, and it sounded like a really cool idea for a festival. I mean, bringing people from different parts of the world together for shows up along the West Coast. It's a really cool idea. We're hitting completely different locations each time, which is really cool. And then being able to spend time with people and play with people that you're normally not going to be able to play with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That's the exciting part, I think. And everybody there has been really cool and really excited for it. It's infectious, I would say. Ever since getting involved myself and finding out about it, it's, a lot of excitement around it. Is there anyone in particular that you are excited to maybe catch, or have you had a chance to check out who you'll be playing with?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited to see The Awakening. I've been listening to some of their stuff. To me, I think that's what I'm most excited about.
Yeah, I think for me too, it's The Awakening. It's a solid lineup. I'm also pretty excited for Vancouver with Urban Heat. So that sounds good. I know it's been announced, so I don't think it's something weirdly secret. So that's pretty exciting. I think I've DJ'd for Twin Tribes and Urban Heat before, but not performed. So that's pretty cool to like be able to have the band. But yeah, I think the whole lineup is really good. I think it all complements each other. And it's always good to be back in like California, San Francisco, LA, I mean, even Portland and Vancouver, we always have a big heart for because those 4 places seem to really support us pretty heavily. And so it's really awesome to just go back and receive that support.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it does seem like you guys are on a path in that regard of like, going back to places that you came from. It does seem that you're charting a course for this. I just want to compliment that, like, this project does seem like it has a vision behind it. And yeah, well done. Anyway, next question. So when it comes to writing your lyrics and deciding what to put into English and what to put into Spanish, what's the process there? Like, how do you decide? Like, is there an emotion tied to one, or what's your process for making that decision?
Yeah, I do a lot of the writing, and I kind of just like ping pong with Erik to say, hey, at times I have to be like, does this make sense? Because I come from a bilingual background. There'll be times I'm trying to describe something, but it won't come out the way I'm thinking about it, like in Spanish. My upbringing is pretty different, living in a place that is speaking both languages. So I tend to like jumble words sometimes. So like my thinking is that way. I'll sing a song, and a lot of what I like to sing about is just stuff that I've been through, stuff that I'm still going through, that sometimes seems to never end. Some of the words just come out stronger for me to express in Spanish than it would be in English. That's kind of how I determine it. And then it just feels like it flows. Sometimes I try to translate it in English, and for some reason it just doesn't hit for me in terms of how I want to sing it. And so I think I've talked about this before, but like I'm very inspired by, mariachi singers, a lot of Latin singers, and how they kind of just sing out loud with a lot of soul and just very in that moment. And so I think that's where it kind of comes from. It's just, if I'm going to sing this certain kind of range, then if it sounds better in Spanish, I'm going to pick it to be Spanish because it just feels like it describes what I'm really trying to portray in that moment.
There's also some phrases that you sing in Spanish that in English.
Yeah, it just doesn't hit. For me, it doesn't hit. So if I'm singing it and it doesn't hit, then I don't feel comfortable. But, it might hit differently for somebody if it was translated in English differently, right? But I also want to be able to express my roots. I've always loved music like that. I'm huge into like Italo disco, post-punk from different countries. I might not know anything what they're saying, but I usually look it up, but like in German or Portuguese. And I think it's really beautiful for people to do that bilingual interpretation of like, what they're trying to express. I think like really hits with me. So I was like, I think that was kind of helping with the encouragement of doing that, because before I didn't feel confident, but then being able to listen to other artists that I admire that do that, I think helped.
Yeah. It is refreshing, I must say, because I've had no problem with listening to music in languages I don't know. Plenty of my life, like, who cares? Music is music, and the story behind it or the emotion behind it will still carry through to a certain extent, right? Like if it's crafted well enough. So that's never been a barrier for me, but I do find it very refreshing, especially in a scene that, our little scene is mostly a lot of English. I do think it adds like an interesting dynamic of culture, and I'm a big fan of that. I'm a sucker for it. I don't know if you can tell by all the gushing and praise I'm heaping on the both of you. So with that, we're just going to change gears here completely. So
the only thing I would say though is I think it's pretty rad when we are performing and there are people who don't speak Spanish who are singing the words. Like that's pretty rad. But anyway, that's not all I'm gonna add there. I think it kicks butt to see people willing to learn a different language and get into the emotion, even though they might not know in that moment, or they practice it and they're very proud of it. I think that's really cool.
Agree. And because and plus to be able to sing along like at a concert or whatever, like it takes an amount of courage, I think, and like an amount of love for a thing. So yeah, I think that's awesome. I know that I have mispronounced the name of the band a bunch, and my manager, lovely Mexican woman, decided to politely inform me to stop sounding so dumb and pronounce it correctly. But she told me that it meant dark gossip, and I was like, what an interesting name. Why that name? What made you choose that?
Well, I already kind of had that name for my DJing name. I've had several names like DJ No Girl, which was like this comic book of a girl brain. I forget what it was, but it was also just kind of like a sly on like, back when I was kind of DJing, there was like no women DJing. So whenever I would be put into a mix or like this DJ group, so to speak, I was always the only woman. And so that was my nod. But then the name started evolving. It became Cat Claw. But then I was like, this makes no sense because I just like cats. I don't want to be cat clawed. Doesn't sound like me. When I was DJing in Chicago for a long time, I moved to Seattle trying to start over in terms of like DJing and things like that. And as I started getting some popularity in Seattle, which took a long time, it wasn't easy, I started hearing kind of gossip here and there of like, who is she? She just moved from Chicago. She's not from Seattle. All these kind of things that I felt were at the time making me feel down about myself. And so I was like, you know what? My name is going to be Go Chisme. And that means like, obviously I am doing something right if people are gossiping about me and don't know me. So then it kind of evolved from there. And like I DJ a lot in Seattle and some pretty big gigs, but I've also DJed in LA and back in Chicago still. And so starting the band, I wanted to think of a different name, but I was like, what if this is like the alter ego, like the other side of me? Because a lot of people don't see this side because I'm DJing house music and, I've always wanted to DJ dark wave and things like that, but I never had the space for it. And so what about dark chisme? Like I'm all about dark humor. I'm all about gossip and people expressing themselves because we're not all always happy. And so portraying this happiness, that to me is a little weird. I'm not saying that you can't be happy every day. I just think it's normal to express frustrations as long as it's not like trying to hurt someone or like, make somebody feel less than. I think it's normal to express frustrations with someone, or you might not like somebody wearing Tevas or something like that. Like that's all just kind of silly. It's an opinion. And so yeah, I guess long story short, that's kind of where dark chisme came from. Just wanted to express that other side of me. And then gold chisme already having recognition in Seattle, I think it helped to have to stick with that because people were like, oh, she's doing a project. And so they would check it out. And some people liked it. Some people thought it was totally different. And so I was like, that's cool.
I do want to just follow up on that really quick. Is that a thing that you have encountered much of sort of when I say the thing, I mean pushback and maybe racism, maybe sexism, maybe any of those things from people that maybe you regarded as peers or colleagues or however you want to, contemporaries is maybe the better word.
Even with DJing, like definitely dealt with a lot of that. Even when I was in metal bands, it was just like the first thing as a front woman just being judged that if I'm going to be able to scream or growl like a lot of the men that were at those shows. And usually it was just always a lineup of dudes. And so while I felt good being part of that because I felt like maybe another woman or, they, them, like will see me and be like, I should start something. And so like, I do feel that's still prominent, especially like with our band right now too. While there's been like amazing women and LGBTQIA plus reaching out, I still think just in terms of like the industry is still very male dominant. And while there's a really great male, frontman bands that I admire. I just would love to see it mixed up more. Like, if you see a whole dude lineup, maybe think it'd be great to have some women or LGBTQI plus, especially
Yeah.
BIPOC in the mix. I mean, that's going to make a fun show, because sometimes I've seen a lineup where it's just the same thing throughout what is being booked. I think that's kind of why I respect Glom, because I think they're paying attention to that. And so, yeah, to your question, it's just, I do see that still. And especially with the Latinos or BIPOC in the goth community, while it's a very opening community, I do think there still needs to be things worked on, because I can't tell you how many times I've heard a backhanded comment or something very passive in the community. And I think we need to embrace that the goth scene is for everybody, but we need to show it. We can't just say it. It needs to be seen. It needs to be heard. Yeah, I feel it needs to definitely be worked on, but I do think there's people who are not part of the BIPOC community per se, but they see it. So, but we just need more people to be involved.
Yeah, agree. And I was not about to stop you from having a small rant. It's a thing I have to stop myself from doing on the show most of the time. But I mean, I also feel that I've had Christian Petke from Cop International, great guy, but I had him on the show, and like every time I run into him, even at a festival, like politics is the first thing that comes up. And it just, there is that sort of feeling, and I even sort of engaged one of my coworkers at work today on politics a little bit for just a moment. She's a very smart 23-year-old and was like, I don't really, involve myself in politics that much. I kind of don't care all that much about it. And I was like, I don't want to try and mansplain to anybody or act like somebody's dad, but I felt compelled to say, maybe you should. This is a time that I feel like most of us should, especially as a woman, especially as a person of color, especially as, and not just you, but the people you love and surround yourself with, your whole community. And I felt the urge to make that outreach of like, you should care. Like, now is the time to care.
Yeah, especially when it's human rights. It's like, how is that like a political thing to want something for your communities, for everyone basically? And so we have the platform for it, and we I've always wanted to be seen and heard, and I always wanted to see, I always got excited when I saw awesome BIPOC singers, drummers, and bands. I remember seeing Kitty, and there was a person of color in a cool new metal band. I want to be seen and heard. I also want the community to feel that they can be seen and heard too, and then maybe spark that they can also start a band, or they can also start a project and feel that they have a community. We always encourage people to ask us, how do we get here? How can they do what we're doing, and things like that. And I'm always open to talk about those things, because I think it's important. So yeah, I do think we should get political. I mean, music has always been a part of that. I mean, I learned about politics, and it's going to sound silly because I'm a big new metalhead, but from System of a Down, when my family was just not really aware of the politics going around them because they were so busy trying to survive. System of a Down taught me about politics, that I would question things. I always felt empathy for others. And so it's bands like that, I feel, open the doors for me to understand life and the political climate a little bit more. And so I think that's so important, because at times when I felt lost. And so, yeah, it is political. It should be political. We should talk about these things.
And you've mentioned Linkin Park, the fact that they kept their stuff not parental advisory and accessible.
Didn't curse on those 2 albums.
Yeah, it just was so important to opening their message up to so many young people, and that was huge too.
Especially me, where I grew up in foster homes and group homes, and so they wouldn't let me listen to certain music because they labeled it bad, and I was in a deep depression state, lots of really dark things, and so they felt that the music will make me want to do things, and so while they weren't understanding that the music was actually helping me, that I felt somebody I can connect with through the lyrics and things like that.
Something that this made me think of while we were talking was, I know that there's sometimes lineups that are pretty homogenous, as you were kind of saying, but One of the things we found in the small, like darkwave is a small scene, and Seattle's a pretty small scene in and of itself. So the best shows that we've played have been groups that all share the same amount of energy, I think. And that's been a really great way to sort of bridge those boundaries of what genre boundaries or something like that. Like the best shows have just found people with the same sort of energy within their music and just energy within themselves and how they approach things.
Yeah, agree on all points. Music should goddamn very well be political. And I applaud you for mentioning what kind of turned you on to it too. It can come from any source. Like it can come from a thing you love that you want to know more about or get closer to, right? We feel sort of inherently drawn towards the things that we love. And if we end up learning through that, we learn that even harder, I feel, or we pay a little more closer attention to it. Okay, well, that was wonderful. I agree on all points. So aside from the music, I'm going to go ahead and hit you both with the last question of the podcast because I want to kind of keep it a little brief and easy to digest. But what is something that you have been enjoying recently? And your answer can be anything, just a book, a movie, a TV show, your dog, just what's something that you wake up and you're jazzed about?
Yeah, for me with the band, it's just like being pumped to write more music because it's just been kind of cool how people have been connecting, like getting messages and people coming to shows saying like, I listened to your song, I've been going through this. And so for me, it's really cool to hear that, but then it's also just like, whoa, I'm connecting with somebody through this too. And they understand what I'm going through as well. So it's been kind of cool to do that. Been picking up, learning new synths, but also trying to find time with friends. And that's been kind of cool, challenging at the same time. Friends that are just like, you can feel yourself with and just be goofy and just trying to find that time and not, I love hustling and I love doing what I need to do, but making sure to find time to go to shows, to support other bands and to hang around with people who, you know, they don't have to be other artists or like, but just people you feel comfortable around and can have like a really silly time during a lot of, crap that's going on.
Definitely still writing music. I think there's still so much to learn about, the synthesizers that we have and just how to get the most out of them. But I've also been making a comic and I think about drawing a lot. So just there's a lot of like visual topics that I don't know a lot about. So I'm trying to learn how to draw those things while also telling the narrative. And it's
How long have you been drawing a comic book? What is your comic book about?
I just have been making small zines and comics for a while. I have a press that I print risograph comics for people around the US and Canada. And they're just usually sci-fi things, some horror stuff, just whatever. It's all, just zines, self-published stuff. Yeah.
Is it available to look at anywhere on the internet?
Yeah, I have a lot of it on my Instagram, but the website is realllyeasy.press. That's where most of it is.
Okay, awesome. And that's exciting. That's a cool thing that you do other than make music. What drew you to want to try your hand at making your own?
Honestly, I was playing music and then moved to Chicago a long time ago and didn't know anyone else that made music at the time. I went to a bookstore called Quimby's and didn't know that people made their own comics. And the person that worked there said, hey, I'm having friends over. If you want to come over, just me, a random person, to their house to draw with them. And that kind of kicked everything off. I just started drawing and making comics with friends. It was just a way to make friends and kind of build a community in a new place.
Now, what? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh. It's not a competition, but that was a pretty good answer. So I always answer the question myself, not because I'm conceited, but it's a good it's a good practice to just sort of, talk about the things we enjoy in life because fuck, there's so much to not enjoy right now. But we'll not go back onto any sort of political tangent or anything right now. It's a shame that all of our lives have to be taking place while the world's ending. That kind of sucks. Anyway, the thing I've been enjoying recently is actually my new job. I got a job working in the marketing department at my company, and it's dope. to suddenly use the skill that I've put the most time into and my writing and the things I have to say and design and whatever dumb skills I have. It's been so nice to use those things and feel useful and like applied, I guess. Yeah, I'm sure that you both sort of feel that way very much so with making music or drawing comic books.
And video games.
Oh, yeah.
I dip in and out working in video games. So I have a design background. I don't talk about it much, but I worked for like Minecraft, Bungie, and Blizzard. So just kind of my nerdy side, I play video games. So if anybody wants to play Overwatch, hit me up. Just don't be weird. Just please don't be weird and invite me to play.
No, I don't spend nearly as much time playing video games as I used to. But man, I loved me some Overwatch back in the day. Marvel Rivals was pretty fun. I put some hours into that and enjoyed myself as sort of a Overwatch alternative kind of a thing. Yeah, no, video games are fantastic. I didn't know that you had a design background. I mean, you did mention that you keep it on the down low. That's interesting. What drew you to that, if you don't mind my asking?
Right now, I kind of do it to make some extra moolah. Sure. But usually when we're designing posters and stuff like that, like Erik and I will team up and I kind of become art director, kind of, so to speak. I used to design like black metal posters. I would design our posters. I'm not going to lie, they look like shit, but they were cool at the time. I just really like designing for music, advertisement, and things like that. I've always just been into painting, mixed media. Mm-hmm. And I think it's, again, not to be emo, but just an escape from a lot of like things that was happening with my family. And then knowing that I can just do like digital kind of media, like graphic design, branding, and now UI UX, because I like how design works with people. So yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just always been into like just art and all things like creative, and wanted to design, and designing for shows was like super fun at the time.
Yeah. Nice. That's really cool. Okay, well, we'll wrap it up here. You're both fabulously interesting people and just so happen to also come together and make fucking bangers. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And really excited to see you both at Gloamfest. And thanks for making this work and taking some time for a chat with my goofy ass. I appreciate it very much. So yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap here. Thank you both so much.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Void Signal intro and outro courtesy of Processor. Visit processor2.bandcamp.com for more Processor, and visit voidsignal.net to help support the creation of more Void Signal. Stay safe, stay loud.